The lore of Pokemon's Kalos region is actually quite dark, and it explores the themes of life and death, conflict and revolution. Over 3,000 years ago, a now ancient war was bringing ruin to the region. A man by the name of AZ will almost wholeheartedly shape this story. However, there's quite a few details not quite clear about him. AZ had a beloved Floette, which was gifted to him by his late mother. This companion, however, was forced to partake in the conflict. With the war showing no signs of stopping, AZ years later was presented with, as the game quotes, a tiny box. If it is unclear to you, this box contained the remains of his companion. This wording of Floette being reduced to nothing more than a tiny box hits home in a lot of ways. The war has almost depersonalised the Pokemon, with it becoming no more than just another casket. In his grief, AZ built a machine capable of bringing back his Floette, ignoring what it may take to do so. Somehow he achieves this and is once again reunited with his friend. However, this wasn't just a happy ending with no consequence, and his actions didn't stop there. Still fueled by rage towards the warring nations, AZ converted the machine into what we now know as the ultimate weapon, and brought about a destruction so potent that the very war ended. Floette ultimately realised that the fuel needed to power such a machine was the lives of other Pokemon, meaning its revival was at the cost of many others. Wallowing in despair, Floette left AZ's side, with AZ himself later disappearing in his immortal search of rekindling this bond. We know from various data sources, including in-game text, that AZ was actually the king of Kalos. So why would he have resulted in sending his very own Floette into battle while knowing these risks? Let's first acknowledge that the in-game text claims the king was forced to send his own beloved Pokemon into battle. This is where we now start to break into a few different theories. For starters, it can be simply implied that the war had escalated to such a tense point. Thus, all Pokemon were needed on the front lines with no exceptions made. We know that in these ancient times, Pokemon weren't captured in Pokeballs as we traditionally know, and they weren't commanded by trainers as such. Instead, Pokemon were viewed as tools, and so it's only natural that as much as AZ might have loved his Pokemon, the survival of Kalos was more imperative. Secondly, this is where we're introduced to AZ's younger brother. There's not much known about this man, but we do know that he led a legion of greedy souls who wanted to seize Kalos. This could infer a couple things. AZ, while king, may not have solely commanded power over all military. His brother's army may well have been the primary force dictating war operations. Likewise, there's a chance that in his struggle to claim the throne, AZ's brother may have sent Floette to the front lines as a direct insult to the current king. This is all of course speculation, but we're not quite done with these politics yet. Now, all Wikipedia pages regarding AZ and the ultimate weapon state that this was used to wipe out both sides of the conflict. I couldn't find an exact source that these are referencing from, or if it's just implied that it had to be the case. I also want to mention that it's very possible that he used his own forces as the very life energy needed to fire the weapon at the enemy. Let me know in the comments if you know more on this, but for the sake of the video, let's explore in more detail. One side of the fight is of course Kalos, or, as mentioned, quite possibly his brother's army. This could have been a retaliation at the very force which conscripted his beloved Pokemon. But who was the other side of the war? Bluntly speaking, we don't know. There's many theories going around relating to Unova, Galar, and even Paldea, but those are whole discussions in themselves, so for now, let's move past this. What we do know, however, is that after firing the weapon and ending the war, AZ took the key needed to activate the weapon and disappeared. Following on from this, his brother, who sought to claim the region for himself, saw this as a rude awakening, a realisation of how bad Kalos had been ravaged by war, and buried the weapon underground, hoping it's never used again. He may have also have been doing this to bury a hideous past from future generations to see. Fast forward a few thousand years and we get to the events of Pokemon X and Y. Of course, if you've played the games, you'll know what happens here, so for the time being, I'll avoid looking into these games in more detail. However, if you do want to know more, let me know and I'll be happy to do so. Now, what's very interesting is that at no point in this tale is Xerneas or Yveltal mentioned. These Pokemon at their core represent life and death, and closely parallel the ultimate weapon. Likewise, we also have Zygarde, who serves as the protector of the planet's ecosystem. It's also mentioned that Zygarde keeps a close watch on the planet, and on its two counterparts, Xerneas and Yveltal, ensuring the equilibrium of the planet and the cycle of life and death are kept in check. With a war taking place on such a scale and mass death across the region, surely this balance was disrupted. Maybe this leads into the creation of the ultimate weapon itself. After all, we don't know how it was even built. Somehow or another, AZ used technology unlike any seen during that era to unite Kalos for the first time. Now, this is a shot in the dark, but with Pokemon Legends Arceus leaning so heavy into the whole time travel situation, would it be so far-fetched to imagine this will be the case in Legends ZA as well? This advanced technology AZ had access to may have straight up came from the future. I mean, it could imply that originally AZ was the only one who knew about the technology. Or could Zygarde have played a part in this? I mentioned that it's strange that no action was taken by any of these legendaries during such a time of destruction and loss of life. But what if this was the actions of the legendaries? Even more so, as explained, if Kalos had been experiencing a time of prosperity and growth deriving from this advancement in technology, maybe in Zygarde's eyes, this war was the balancing factor to keep the world in equilibrium. Therefore, no intervention was needed. Even so, I can't help but feel that if we assign truth to my previous statement, firing the ultimate weapon surely would have gone a step too far and knocked things out of order. Maybe this is what we're going to explore in Legends ZA. It all of course depends on what point of time we'll be experiencing in Legends. I've been staying away from watching other theory videos or leaks, so my personal guess is that I'm going to put my money on that we will be rebuilding Lumio City following the Ultimate Weapon's destruction, and that Zygarde will either be helping us create or attempting to prevent us from doing so, depending on where the equilibrium of the world sits. I'm also potentially giving Pokemon a bit too much credit. It's not certain that they had ever planned to follow up on the story in a Legends type game, but we do also know that there was an original Pokemon Z game that never saw the light of day, so maybe this is part of a bigger plot. I'm certain that we're going to explore this side of things more in Legends ZA, which I'm quite excited about. Naturally, I'm sure I've left a few gaps in this story. After all, it's riddled with holes in any case. There's a lot to speculate on here, and with many other creators already doing a great job doing so and stating theories of their own, I thought I'd stick to the basics for now. There's a lot of potential for this story to be developed further and even link into future entries of the franchise, but I'm afraid only time will tell. This is my first attempt at making a Pokemon focused video, so let me know if you want to see more of this on my channel. Oh, and if you've made it this far, please do me a favour and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.